Welcome to Celebrating Act Two. Celebrating Act Two is the user manual for the second half of your life.
Hello, we're here again with my partner John Coleman and one of our favorite contributors, Dr. Liz Lister. And what are we going to be talking about today, John?
Well, I am all stressed out. I have got so much I've got to do today.
Get it out, John. Get it out, John.
I want to talk about stress. But first, I want to ask everybody, actually, I want to demand that you like this video. You're watching our video, you like it, please hit the button and subscribe. Subscribe to Celebrating Act Two on YouTube. Now, after that crass commercial break, Dr. Liz, I want to scream. I've got so much stress. By the way, that's what I do when I have stress. I find go out on the porch or the backyard, someplace where I'm not going to bother anybody, and I let it all out. I give it one good scream, one good big loud scream, and get it out physically. But I'm not sure that helps me mentally with the stress. So stress it's a physical problem, is it not?
Absolutely, it sure is. Everyone has a different way of handling stress. And it's also important to make a distinction that I refer to as physiologic stress. So people don't even have to feel stressed out in order to be experiencing physiologic stress or at the cell level. All right, so that's daily life as we know it. That's cell phones ringing 24/7, emails coming in 24/7, being out in traffic when we're out and about. All of these can lead to physiologic types of stress. Even if we don't have to go and scream it out, it's causing a cortisol release in our bodies, which is the stress hormone that most people have heard of.
So is cortisol a bad thing?
It can be. It can be. So the way the system's designed is what we call the HPA axis. The hypothalamus is an area of the brain, and the pituitary is a little bit lower level of the brain, and the adrenal glands sit on top of each kidney. And each adrenal gland is only about this big, and we cannot live without our adrenals. All right, they make cortisol to keep us going. Right. So when we experience stress, that's at the level of our brain, and it ends up stimulating the adrenals to make cortisol. And the original purpose of that was to be very scared all of a sudden. For example, a tiger jumps in front of our ancient ancestors as humans, and we had to mobilize really quickly and be able to run away from the tiger. Okay. So the burst of cortisol mobilizes sugar into our bodies, into the bloodstream, so that our muscles have access to it and we can run away fast and live to see another day. Nowadays, however, we don't encounter too many tigers. We encounter a more low level, it's a more low level chronic stress, or it might be something like your boss yelled at you at work and you just have to button it. You cannot say anything. Okay, so it's the exact opposite of being able to run away from the tiger. You actually have to kind of like swallow it and keep it internalized. And this is where we get into trouble with cortisol and stress.
But not all people react to stress the same. For instance, I know that for me, and I don't particularly understand what experiences in my life led me to it, but I'm not worried about getting eaten by a tiger. I'm sure that I might react a little bit different if actually a tiger jumped into the room with me. But generally speaking, in the most stressful situations, I generally just look at it and say, okay, so here's what's happening, and what do we need to do to make it better? So I really, at least outwardly, get upset about almost anything, as long as I'm convinced that it's not going to particularly eat me at that particular moment. Is that okay?
That's good. That's really good. From a physiologic standpoint, Art, that's fantastic. And that's very important. We all have the ability to manage our brains, even if we don't realize it. We can learn to boss our brains around and be able to do what you're doing and modify how we think about what's happening in our lives. And it's very important that we do that because cortisol is helpful in a very short term sense, but it does damage if we're releasing it long term over time.
Now
So
that's a good point.
what are the kind
I,
of
I,
things that people can do if they really get really stressed up? Are there some immediate things they can do, or if they're always in stress, is there maybe some therapies that you can suggest if it's just
Yeah,
something where people are tight all the time?
yeah, absolutely. So it's very important to protect your sleep. I always talk about this. You know, I and you gentlemen know that I approach everything from a hormonal balance point of view. All right. So anything that helps with hormone balance is going to be helpful. Protecting your sleep, moving your body, getting out in nature, okay, as well as you were mentioning, therapy, any types of mental approaches that help you be able to boss your brain around and not um, react automatically. Of course, we're going to have our reactions, but then we always get to choose. Our feelings come from how we interpret what is happening. Okay. And then we have choice. The goal, of course, is to have choice over what we actually do in the moment. All right. But
so
it's so important to manage it from a hormonal balance standpoint.
so it sounds like besides my physical release of yelling, which does seem to help me, it sounds like what I need to do then is manage the mental side of the stress by really maybe meditation or some technique that gets me to control my feelings. Say to myself, okay, this is difficult, and maybe take Art's technique and say, well, it's not the end of the world. Let's solve it. We step one, two, three, and don't worry about it. So the mental component
Yes,
sounds very important.
absolutely. Very, very important. Again, from my perspective as a hormone expert, there are hormones, people talk about having a shorter fuse. And
Yes.
that happens when we get older and our women have less estrogen, men have less testosterone. We might get a little bit more impatient, a little bit shorter fuse, a little less progesterone for women because that hormone calms the brain. And it also helps with sleep. And when we're tired and not rested, this can turn around and be a problem in terms of stress tolerance. That's the phrase that I use that I like, stress tolerance. We all want to have as best stress tolerance as we can. We can't change our feelings in terms of the immediate feelings, but we can see where did those feelings come from? What did we perceive that led to those feelings? And we can question the perception. That we can do. I mean, the feeling is the feeling. We can say, where did this come from? And maybe I can see that situation or what that person said a little bit differently. And that definitely affects our feelings and usually helps. And then, of course, like I said, what I care about is hormone balance. And when we don't have cortisol just spewing out in our bodies at all times of day and night, then our health is going to be in much, much better shape.
So it looks,
So
John, that the things that we like to do is we like to talk about taking naps. I don't think we often do it. We talk about the concept of it more than we do it. But you have your grove that you go out and
I do.
you tend your trees.
Yeah.
And I know that
Yeah.
there's always a glow about you when you can talk about, you just talked about, actually you're growing corn now, right? And you've had your first crop of the season.
First crop of corn, yeah.
And
So
in
you know
the,
what it is? You know what
yeah.
it is, Art? It's not because we're talking about stress. The gardening that I do is it's kind of like a hobby, and it's a like all hobbies, it is a distraction.
Mm,
So when you're concentrating on something other than your problems or whatever is giving you stress, you can't be stressed. So any kind of distraction, I think. I think of I used to know somebody who was into model trains, and of course you go into their basement and the whole place was filled with trains and little villages, uh, and they would spend hours. It was part of a club, so they would all get together. They would spend hours and hours, and they would concentrate on these little miniature trains and villages, and to the point where obviously they couldn't be thinking about anything other than miniature trains. And I think that's what a good hobby does for you, a good distraction.
Mm.
And that's for me, that's what my garden is. But other people need to find something else to be distracted. Quick,
Well,
quick, quick recall. My good friend's mother at 9/11. I've told you this before. After 9/11, she was so stressed. I know she was 80 years old. She was so
Mm.
stressed. She was on the phone. She was in New York. He's in California. She was on the phone every day. And what's going to happen? The world is going to end and they're going to invade and more buildings are coming. He said, Mom, turn off the television. Stop
Mm.
watching the news. Because that information, that incoming information was stressing her out. And you know what? It made a difference. Didn't change the world, but it made her less stressful.
and you've also heard me
That's
say
right.
many times that I think I may change the phrase now. I tell people my drug of choice is Tai Chi, and I
Yes,
practice that several times a week. I may now have to change that to my hormone of choice is Tai Chi. And
that's
so,
good.
Dr. Liz, what is your hormone of choice for stress, or not hormone, but your activity for stress,
Reducing, yeah,
reducing
reducing
stress?
stress.
Sleep.
That's good.
My
Okay.
family's from South America. I also am a fan of naps. Although it's nice when I have the energy and I go the whole day long and I don't nap and then I have another good night's sleep following it. It's all good. But I go to great lengths to practice what I preach about protecting my sleep. And that's what I do. That's one of my main ones from Hormone Balance. There's others. I like to do yoga. I do a daily 10-minute practice at least. I've been following a series doing that. Uh, Whatever else I can do, going out for walks. We have a new hydroponic tower garden. I'm excited about that. So it's
Mm.
not
Ooh,
like getting out, getting my hands in the dirt, but it's still very exciting. Gardening is a wonderful mental calming activity. And I connect that to you, John, going out and just having a good yell. Any practice, it's a practice. People talk about yoga practice, meditation practice, gardening. It's all good. It all helps calm the physiology. It's very important.
yeah.
Well, I'd like to say this, John, that when we first started this conversation, you were very, very, seemed a bit uptight and tense, and you're
I
looking
was.
very relaxed now. Is
I,
this,
you know, Art, I'm kind of stress free, I would say. I feel so much better. Thank you, Dr. Liz. Now, I think if you really care about my stress, you will subscribe to Celebrating Act Two at YouTube. And while you're there, you'll look up Dr. Liz's playlist because Dr. Liz Art has taken all your videos that we've done with you over the year and he's got them in one playlist and we could binge watch Dr. Liz. And I'm willing to bet you have a couple of groupies that do that.
yeah, I mean, a couple of people are choosing you over Seinfeld reruns. I mean, uh, I think it's wonderful. Okay,
Well,
we
this has been great.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Liz, thank you so much for your advice on stress. And I think it's something that most people don't recognize until it's too late. My fear is the people who have that constant low level stress. That's the hardest to recognize because you live with it every day. You don't see it. And
be,
Art,
before we say goodbye, you can see a lot more about Dr. Liz at drlizmd.com. And you have a wide variety of subject matter. And there's a constant release of topical videos that you do not only with us but with other people. So I hope people will go there and find solutions or at least ease some of their stress about aging issues. So with that, we thank you for visiting with us this time, and look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Likewise.
For more on Celebrating Act Two, visit our webpage, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and tell your friends. Celebrating Act Two is the user manual for the second half of your life.